Big welcome to MarketSquare. My name is Oluwa Pelumi Awe, and I'm happy you tuned in today. To get things started, let's start by checking the meaning of the term starvation wage, which is actually the title of this episode. You have it on the screen that it means money paid to workers that is not enough to pay for the things such as food and shelter that are needed to live. I'm sure you are wondering why we had to check that term, yeah? Well, the organized labor has firmly rejected the federal government's minimum wage proposal of 62,000 naira and has described this proposal as a starvation wage. Now, you must have on the screen right now headlines from different newspaper companies mentioning that in very, very clear terms. The body comprising the National Labour Congress and Trade Union has dismissed the 100,000 naira suggestions by many and has strongly insisted that a suitable living wage for an average Nigerian worker should be pegged at 250,000 naira. So where I work in my company, we have many coppers there. And I remember in 2019 when President Muhammadu Buhari increased the minimum wage to 30,000 naira, you could see how excited many coppers were. And imagine you have a copper earning 250K in a month. They're the ones clamoring. We have one in the studio right now, waving to me and saying that's what she wants. They would be very excited to have that as their pay every single month. Now, this is coming on the back of many unsuccessful discussions over a new minimum wage, which led Labour to initiate an indefinite strike on the 3rd of June. Paul will put out the video now, and you can see on the screen put out by Paul of many people clamoring for a change. In fact, at the time, airports were closed, hospitals were closed, the national grid was shut down, banks and government establishments were shut down on that day. In fact, the National Assembly had it that some people had to go and seize water from flowing into the National Assembly to tell you how determined people were on the 3rd of June, that the government had to quickly initiate a meeting with labor leaders to call off the strike and pleaded that they should suspend the strike. Very soon you would see on the screen a kind of a list of like a rundown of the days and times when the Labour Congress went on strike for different reasons. And most times when they went on strike, it was about the minimum wage, how that they had to improve it. The organized labor argument is that the current 30,000 naira minimum wage is inadequate due to rising inflation and the impact of recent policy changes, such as the removal of petrol subsidies and the unification of forex windows. In response to this, the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu set up a tripartite committee early in January 2024 to negotiate a new minimum wage and even tasked the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun, to submit the cost implication template of whatever amount is reached. Now, you find out that if you follow the news at the time, you find out that there were speculations as to the fact that he actually presented over 100,000 naira to the President of Nigeria as his recommendation for the new minimum wage, and also putting side by side that the implication of the minimum wage that has been put before them. But although the organized labor gave a 1-week ultimatum to the federal government, which expired at midnight on Tuesday, with a possibility of going on strike if they suspect any lag from the angle of the federal government of Nigeria. They, however, opted against going on strike, citing that the tripartite committee have submitted two figures to the president, two figures as in the 62,000 naira proposed by the government and employers, and the 250,000 naira proposed by the organized labor that comprise of the Nigerian Labour Congress and the Trade Union in Nigeria. Here, now, the governors of the 36 states under the umbrella of the Nigerian Governors Forum have said that anything higher than 60,000 naira as minimum wage is not sustainable. Right on this show, I brought a guest that we both discussed about the sustainability of 200,000 naira, of the feasibility and how that can be sustained. And we realized that at the time, I had Mr. Eri Olonimoyo here on the show where he discussed about the impossibility of reaching that amount, stating that when you want to negotiate something, usually you would have to start from a point where you know the the clients cannot afford. We are Nigerians. We know this. We know this as Nigerians. That if you want to buy something, if you want to, somebody asks you to give him a price for a particular service, you want to raise it so high that the person will now have to say, okay, how about this? So, for instance, an employee, somebody who wants to get a job, goes to a company, for instance, and then he gets into the office. And at the point of answering questions, he answered so well. He gave them wonderful answers like, can we please meet you? Told them about himself, what he has done, what he's here to do, what his 5-year plan is, speaks about his experience in the past and all. And then they get to the point where they begin to discuss about salary. And he's asked, young man, how much should we pay you? In his mind, he could settle for 150K, but starts with 250,000 naira. So that if they have to cut, it wouldn't go below 150,000 naira. And so Mr. Aaron Ololimoyo on the show that mentioned that it's a negotiation tactics used by the very best in negotiating wages. And to even check out the difference between 30K and 250K speaks about the fact that the Labour Congress have done their homework as per what they want the government to settle for. And I know, and you know as well, that they know what amount they want to settle for, and are only just pushing the government to get to that point. Now, this morning, before this show, I was going through the internet and I checked on the New York Times how that it was said there that we're in a season that has never been in the history of Nigeria. We're actually in the worst economic season in the history of this country. People starving, people begging. In fact, I saw the picture of a lady who couldn't walk again because she has not been able to eat for 4 days, to tell you what state people are at the moment. The government has said that it can pay 62,000 naira. The governors are saying that they cannot exceed 60,000 naira. Labour is saying, or has said already, that they cannot accept anything less than 250,000 naira. They've also the governors have called for the decentralization of the minimum wage with respect to the capacity of the state, meaning that states with low internal generated revenue should pay less, and the ones with high internal generated revenue, like Lagos, should pay more. Let's see the figures on the screen right now. So on the screen right now, you have the top 6 states with the highest internally generated revenue. And that's a figure from 2022. I got that from the National Bureau of Statistics right this morning before the show. And you have Lagos, you have Lagos there, you have Lagos, you have FCT Abuja, you have some other states there doing so well as per how much that they are able to generate every single month. If you look to the right-hand side of that particular image you have on the screen, if you look to the right-hand side of the image you have on the screen, the last part, you would see the disparity in the figures there. See how much Lagos makes every single time. See how much Abuja makes every single time. See how much Rivers State makes every single time, and tell you how much that these states are making every single month. And it's not news that Lagos is number 1 on that list. I mean, you have some of the finest companies in Lagos State. You have anybody from Lagos will be smiling right now. You have some of the finest companies in Lagos State. You have some of the biggest companies in Lagos State. You have some of the companies that employ the highest number of staff in Lagos State. And so you would have that amount. You should expect that Lagos should be number 1 on that list. And now, if you check that list even properly, you have, like I said, you have Lagos, you have Rivers, you have Abuja, you have Ogun, you have Delta State. Now, if you go down to the number 8 on that list, there you have Edo State. Now, these figures you have on the screen right now were gotten from the report in 2022. And at the time this was collated, Edo State was paying the highest as per minimum wage. Remember that in 2019, when President Buhari announced 30,000 naira as new minimum wage, Edo State governor came on to say it's going to add 10,000 naira to the amount, which made it 40,000 naira. Now, some days back, the Edo State governor mentioned that Edo will start paying the workers in Edo State to the tune of 70,000 naira. It looks like the Edo State government has somebody who is like a prophet, that sees beyond that sees what the government can pay and then seems to add 10,000 naira on their mouth. I just imagine that. So if at the time these figures were collated, Edo State was number 8 and still decided to pay 40,000 naira to workers in Edo State, considering the hardship at the time, I think we need to give the Edo State governor a loud round of applause. A loud round of applause. The last 5 states on the list, on this list on the screen right now, speaking about the last 5 states that don't generate so much. I would start from the last but not least: Kebbi, Taraba, Yobe, Ebonyi, Katsina. Just to go from the top to bottom again: Katsina, Ebonyi, Yobe, Taraba, Kebbi. These are states that rarely generate so much money in their state. And what led me to put out this image was when we got a report from the governors in Nigeria saying that the minimum wage should be decentralized, meaning that each state should pay according to what it can afford, according to what it generates every single time. And then the NLC have said that it's only possible, and this is quite funny, it's only possible if governors also decentralize their salaries and emoluments. And I know if there's a governor that will shake his head, that must have shook his head at the time he saw this online, would have been the Kebbi state governor, whose state is the least performing state with respect to internally generated revenue, saying that if you want the minimum wage to be as per what each state generates every single month. And I know that you're expecting Lagos State to begin to pay workers around 150, 200,000 naira because they're generating a lot of money. Their payee alone, their pay as you earn alone is a lot. Lagos State's company tax is on the high side. If you know the amount of money Lagos State makes every single month, you will be shocked. And I think I know you saw it on the screen the other time. Now, Kebbi is now saying, so the NLC is saying that if you want the minimum wage to be decentralized, then it means that your salaries as well should be decentralized. Your emoluments as well should be decentralized. So your allowances as well should be decentralized. Every benefit you get should be decentralized, meaning that you will get your portion with respect to how much that you generate every single month. The governor of Edo State has been cited as an example. Every governor should, follow his footstep because it looks as though he has the interest of his people at heart. And it's not the first time that Edo State is doing this, like I already mentioned before now on the show. At this time, we await the figure that will be signed by the president of Nigeria and will be announced soon. And it's my hope and expectation that we don't have labor go on strike again, as much as just so that the government just makes sure that the amount they call is fitting, is suiting, or for this season that we are in as Nigerians, and will put a smile on the faces of many people, especially core members. What is the latest style in the fashion world now, and how much does it cost? Well, now, when it has to do with fashion, you have to give it to the ladies. Yeah. So we're going to hear from Temitope Obama, who is the creative director, Texlor Fleur, and lead tutor at Texlor Fashion Academy. Tope, welcome to the show.
Tope Obama, I am the creative director of Tilox Flare. Tilox Flare is a fashion brand that creates outstanding bespoke outfits for young female adults. Right here on my screen, I have a cupped bustier dress with frills on the side, and making this dress for an individual is going to be costing between 25,000 naira to 30,000 naira, depending on the size of the person that I am working with. And note, the person is also going to be bringing in their fabric. For this yellow dress, it costs between 20,000 naira to 25,000 naira, depending on the size of the person that wants it. So for a smaller size is 20,000 naira. Then for a bigger size is 25,000 naira. It can be made in different colors of preference. Then also, as you can see, the dress can be rocked to church as a church outfit, or you can decide to rock it to the office. Thank you.
You can decide to rock it to the office or rock it to church. Yeah. Thank you, Tokman, for telling us what it will cost to get a good style out there. If you're a guy here, you're a guy there, you have a girlfriend, or you have somebody you think you want to get married to. That's something you want to consider doing. And Tokman's phone number, I guess, on the screen right now, so you could call her to help make that a beautiful wear there. According to the Central Bank of Nigeria, the currency in circulation has been rising consistently over the last couple of months. In April alone, 3.92 trillion naira was circulated, and in March, around 3.86 trillion naira was circulated. Currency in circulation represents banknotes and coins that have been produced and issued for use in the economy. As at the end of May 2024, the currency's value in circulation rose to 3.97 trillion naira, which represents an all-time high and also a 1.07% increase over the previous month. And so one would say that some activities in the country at this time has contributed to how that we have more currency in circulation. You know, weddings, we have more weddings now. I don't know if you've observed weddings now. You have more events happening now, and you can already tell why you have more money in circulation at this time in the country. The month-on-month increase is despite the CBN monetary policy tightening, which has seen the benchmark interest rate pinned at 26.65%. Taking a look at figures, the figures in February 2024 was 3.69 trillion naira, but in March hit 3.87 trillion naira, which represents a 4.76% on a month-on-month basis. Since currency in circulation hit 3.97 trillion naira in May, as shared by the Central Bank of Nigeria, it means that over 90% of currency in circulation is held outside the banking system, which indicates that Nigerians are holding more cash. The currency circulation shows that there has been more spending in the economy, especially by the government, because of the hardship in the country. We are in very, very dangerous times. We are in very, very, I would say, vulnerable times when in other countries in the world, if the government doesn't step in to do stuff, what could happen is that there could be increase in criminal activities if the government doesn't step in. Because when people are pushed to the wall, sometimes they do things that they shouldn't actually do. Yeah. So the government has spent so much money in the last couple of months just to make sure that the people feel better than they would have felt without the government's intervention. The government in the last couple of months has had to spend a lot of money. Usually, when there is much more money in circulation and the government is spending to boost the people's standard of living, the effect is inflation. When you have too much money in circulation, what that does is that it brings about the increase in the prices of goods and services. And my fear when it has to do with increasing minimum wage is what that would do is it could bring about demand pull inflation, but more than that, bring about cost push inflation, meaning that if I have to employ more people to work for me in my company, if I have to pay more members of staff than they are earning before, what that will do to me is that I will need to charge more for my products so that I can take from the profit there and pay the people. So if you're going to solve the problem, you can't solve the entire problem by increasing minimum wage. I think that has to be made clear. You cannot solve the problem of Nigeria by increasing minimum wage, because whether you like it or not, what will happen soon is that the price of everything will increase, and then the 100,000 naira that we're even saying is good will not amount to anything anymore. Yeah. So more has to be done. But what has to be said at this time is that the government is spending more, or has spent more already, in the economy to ensure that the standard of living of the people is raised. People can, go to work and be happy. These days, people frown a lot. Go to work and be happy, and then get your salary and be sure that that money you have gotten can take you home. Like that, your take-home pay can actually take you home. During the Monetary Policy Committee meeting in March, one of the members of the Monetary Policy Committee of the CBN by name Mr. Muhammadu Abdullahi had proceeded that the Apex Bank identified a high currency outside bank as one of the monetary drivers of the country's inflation. And speaking of currency outside the bank, that fell month on month to 3.6 trillion naira in April from 3.627 trillion naira in March 2024, as presented by the CBN, means that over time there has been growth in the financial inclusion, and the informal sector of the economy has now begun to participate in banking financial processes. And when people become more confident in the bank, what they will do is they will save more money. They will take their money from the boxes. People are now beginning to bring out their money that they have kept in their boxes, underground stores and houses, and now taking their money to the bank to save. And that speaks about the trust people now have in banks. And more than even going to the banks to save, they now put their money on Kuda Bank, on Kuda app, on PayPal, on OPay. By the way, you're aware that PalmPay has also started onboarding customers. Yeah, free advert. So they've started onboarding customers on their platform, just like we have Kuda Bank did that last week or so. OPay did that as well last week and all. So people are now beginning to save more money. And that looks like something that is encouraging for the financial sector in the country. Despite the fact that the license of Heritage Bank was revoked, people still have confidence in the banks. And I'm guessing the winners in this season, you have Access Bank winning, you have Zenith Bank winning, you have UBA Bank winning, given that they look like the banks that can stand the test of time. The trust of citizens in the CBN seems to have grown in spite of the impact of the recent regulations by the Central Bank of Nigeria. It's been an incredible time having you join me on the show today, speaking about the idea of the starvation wage that talks about the fact that the minimum wage that employers pay employee that cannot take them home. And also we've spoken about the idea that we have more people taking their money to the bank now, which is kind of an encouraging thing, I mean, for the banking system in Nigeria. Now, do well to follow us on all our social media platforms. The last episode of MarketSquare, I spoke about the rise and fall of Heritage Bank. You need to see that episode, really nice. I had a guest on the show, Dr. Alfred Atiba, speak on that, and what a wonderful conversation we had at the time. Follow us on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok. I'm aware we're on TikTok now. Paul, where are we on again? Anyway. We're in this world. My name is Oluwa Kwelumi. We'll see you on the next one.